It's really exciting to have you here. So this is our second QuaranTEEN Lounge, where we've had live Q&A, and it's exciting. Oh, hang on. I think that's my video going. Sorry, that was so weird. Yeah, so it's really exciting to have you both on here. We had some really great Q&A last week, and in fact the session ended up going for, we finished it right on 8, but we had somebody who stayed on with us until about 8:20 because they were really into the conversation and wanted to talk more, which was so wonderful. And as you know, like it's a tough time in Tassie. We've just got kids going on school holidays right now. I know in other states they may have been on school holidays for a little bit of time already. But the more that our teens are at home, the more some people feel really challenged, and particularly about, what's happening in the environment and how much control we have or don't have. So, we want to have a bit of a discussion tonight about control. But first and foremost, we want to be able to answer any questions that you have and things that are on your mind with your teens. So I want to welcome you both along. And hi, Leanne, of course. Hi, Leanne.
Hi.
Sorry, I got carried away there.
No, that's all good. And such a wonderful introduction, Linda. Thank you. And great to have you, Greg, and great to have you, Lisa, as well.
Yes.
And for all the parents who are going to listen to this, that isn't a Friday night and maybe they're doing family time or having their glass of wine. So welcome when you do watch this. I'm quite interested to know from everyone, what's happening at the moment across the world is bringing a lot of unpredictability and a lot of uncertainty. I have seen some really wonderful things come out of it in terms of my personal experience. So despite it being awful to watch on TV and a lot of the stats are concerning, I've seen an amazing amount of connection, particularly in my suburb. Like I've never seen as many dads out with their kids. I've never seen as many, dogs out in the dog park and people exercising together. So it's, despite the toughness of it, I've seen kind of so many rays of light where I've gone, wow, I haven't noticed that families are probably spending a lot more time together. And I'm just curious from you, Greg, and Lisa and Linda as well, what are some of the rays that you're seeing where you're going, wow, some aspects of our lives might be shifting in a really positive way?
I know for myself. Sorry?
Get the ball rolling.
Yeah, Greg's going.
Yeah, so for myself, I prompted my workplace that I was going to work from home. So in a way, I didn't really give them a choice. And typically, I would arrive home maybe about 7 o'clock at night. I've got 2 stepsons here, and so I guess our working arrangement is that I tend to work with the youngest on his schoolwork. And that's a really fairly intense time, because by the time, or as we get home at 7, you're then straight into dinner and then have to tear through whatever remnants of homework we can get to. Whereas working at home allows us a lot more space. So I can actually devote that one-to-one time. And, we made a remark just now that we've probably over the past, it's been an intense week, but we've probably got through a review of 10 weeks worth of work that we've been able to do face-to-face and actually connect and me get a greater understanding of where my stepson is at academically. And then I've got the flexibility to log my work hours once the kids are in bed. So look, I'm having some late nights, but I'm really appreciating both the connection with my partner, with the kids, and just new ways of working and being able to be creative and actually working to my own space. So that's what's great for me. Personally, it's been terrifically beneficial.
Yeah, isn't it? That's wonderful to hear. And nice to be able to have the flexibility to work at different hours.
Yes,
and I think, when we can make it work, it's amazing. And when we can't make it work, man, it can be quite frustrating, can't it?
Yeah, and especially too, and it's probably worth acknowledging, my daughter's in Hobart, that, I mean, typically I would be face-to-face with them once a fortnight, but we're actually being face-to-face online, and even being able to do homework with them online has been a new way of connecting. So that's been great for us.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Greg, and how awesome that, and so you're finding with the online space, you're actually connecting even a little bit more than maybe you had been previously?
Yeah, in a sense. So there's more, well, look, it's not necessarily day-to-day connection. We typically might send a few quirky pictures or text messages and things, but, you know, have that extra connection of being able to see the girls face-to-face. And for me, one of the gifts has been able to resolve some problems online. So again, my background is in IT. So even though I'm at a distance, I'm able to solve some software problems, and they get a sense of, oh, this is what Dad is, or this is who Dad is, and this is how he goes about solving things. And so look, I'm happy to be tapped on the shoulder as a bit of a fix-it man.
Oh, you shouldn't have told us that, Greg. Yeah. I'm gonna take your number.
I've got him on speed dial. Sorry, would it be okay if I just jumped in there for a moment? Leanne, I've got someone, Nicole, trying to log in, and she said it keeps asking for a password. Did that happen to Lisa?
Did that happen?
Yes, but the second link that you sent me worked perfectly.
Okay, so if you wouldn't mind just taking it away, Leanne, and if it's okay, I might look distracted. I am listening, but I'm just going to help Nicole jump on.
Perfect. So Lisa, what's your sense of you know, how you sitting at the moment?
Yeah, I must admit, after listening to Greg's story, I'm feeling a little bit green with envy, because I'm very fortunate in that I'm able to continue work. So I'm out and about, whereas my two boys are at home. And I thought the best thing would be is to leave them chores to do. But that worked perfectly well on day one. And from day 2 and onwards, it hasn't worked at all. So I'm finding I'm coming home physically exhausted, and the boys have done nothing that's been asked of them, and they are cranky because they've been isolated all day. So I do feel green with envy when I hear about Greg's connection with his kids. So I suppose there are positives and negatives to what's going on at the moment. And I feel like I'm feeling a positive in that I can continue working and bringing in an income, but a negative in that I'm missing out on that connection with my boys.
Absolutely hear you. And, you know, again, I think what you've just said highlights the fact that we all in a different, you know, everyone's life at the moment is impacted in different ways.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm sitting at home and working from home with everyone under the same roof. So we have a greater chance to connect with you, as you mentioned, out on the road. Yeah. And Linda, what's your sense, just coming from your end, of what you know, how's it for you at the moment?
Yeah, look, it's interesting because I've had I've got 2 daughters, 15 and 17, and we're all trying to have our own routines, and it can be challenging in the house because the girls are online with school, and sometimes we, you know, Peter and I get a little bit noisy, and we jump in front of the screen, say hi to the teacher. But look, I think generally okay, and because I've been working from home for probably 18 months or maybe even close to two years now, I'm accustomed to it. But having them home here all the time, I am finding that a little more challenging because there's that constant interruption, and because I'm here, you know, they want to chat, and of course I want to be able to do that, and so I have found myself working quite late as well. And and I had this conversation, Leanne, with you, I think it was last night or yesterday afternoon, about my sleep is now like even worse than it has been because I'm not going to bed early enough. And so I'm finding myself getting quite exhausted. But, you know, in terms of how things are rolling in the house, it's all pretty smooth. And I've got one daughter who's really diligent with her schoolwork, and the other one couldn't care less.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So thank you. I don't know if did you say Nicole was trying to hook
Yeah,
in?
she's still getting the message. So I'm just I'm not sure. Hang on. I'm just going to keep trying with her for the moment,
right.
if that's okay.
So we might fire away to see if there's any burning questions from you, Greg or Lisa, for us. Linda mentioned at the start that we've got something in our back pocket around control, and you know, when we're in a situation that we find ourselves, you know, how to work with our teens in terms of what we can control and what we can't. But we would love to, you know, get started with any questions you may have.
Yeah, Leanne, I've got a question, and it does revolve around control. I feel like I'm losing control with regards to bad language. So it's hard where to draw the line, because I can appreciate that the teenagers probably do use bad language amongst their peers when they're at school. Yeah. And then they come home, and if they get onto the PlayStation, because they're interacting online, that bad language continues. But what I'm finding now is that it's almost become a norm, in inverted commas. So on a day-to-day basis, even chatting to me, that bad language is coming out as if I'm a mate. And even though I say it's not appropriate, I'm not your mate, I'm your mother, and you don't speak to me like that, it's not working. It's not working. So I feel like I've lost control of how to control that. And to be honest, I feel like they've lost control of their bad language.
And so, Lisa, when you go to them and you say, you don't talk to me like that, how do they respond?
Sorry, Mom. But it's not sincere. It's just, oh, sorry, Mom. And then stop for a couple of minutes, and then I can hear it again. So I think it's just, I don't know how to keep it in perspective, and how for them to be able, do they even have the mental maturity at 16 to be able to draw the line and say, okay, I'm not with my mates now, I'm with my mom, I need to watch my language. I just don't know. I mean, it's like, an example is I'd spoken to my 16-year-old son about it, and he said, no, Mom, it's fine. I'm not going to use bad language in front of you. But then he goes to put the corsage on for his formal, goes to put it on his date's arm for his formal, and he dropped it.
So I may need to go where there's no sound. Sorry. Do you mind for a second? I don't know how long this will be.
Hey, Nicole.
Oh, babe, sorry, that took so long.
Hi, Nick.
That's okay.
So glad to be here.
And welcome. Do you mind just popping yourself on mute? Sorry, we haven't said hello in a lot of detail, but popping you on. Hello. Just popping yourself on mute for the moment. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So just Nicole, for what to just update you as to where we're at. So Lisa, we've got Greg online, and we've got Lisa, and then the lovely Linda. And Lisa was just talking about challenges with her two boys, and she was referring to her 16-year-old who's really at the moment kind of got that bad language happening. And Lisa, butt in if I don't get it summarized in the way that you gave it. But and it's an issue around swearing, you know, bad language in the home. They do a lot of online. When they do online gaming, it's very interactive, and the boys are, you know, the bad language amongst the, you know, while they're gaming together. However, that moves also to when chatting with Lisa as a mom. And then Lisa, you were giving an example now with your 16-year-old. Do you want to just share that with us again?
Oh yes, so I said just as an example,
Okay.
he was putting on his formal dates corsage, and all the parents were around because it was at the prees, and he dropped it. So his first reaction was to swear in front of all the parents, the worst word, the F word, in front of all the parents. And it's inappropriate. So as I say, I feel like I've lost control as to how to control it. And I feel like they have lost control as to the boundaries.
Yeah, yeah. So I might input a little from your question around, are their brains developed enough to make the call to go, it's not appropriate to swear? I'll input, and then I'd love to take it to the group and, see, Greg, if you've got any thoughts on it, and Linda and Nick. So from a brain point of view, and certainly what I know from the research is, yes, they've got a developing brain. And yes, the emotional center is more developed than, the adult part of the brain, which is the last part to develop, and particularly 15 to 16-year-olds. Their moods and emotions are particularly intense. So when they experience emotions around that age, they definitely are more intense than we would as adults. So yes, it is growing. They do, however, and certainly this is my perspective from what I've seen, they do have the ability to make the decision and have the control to go, it's not okay to swear. Like anything, it becomes a habit. And it's also in a peer environment, it's kind of that's their lingo. And, that's how we chat, and therefore we feel like a tribe of young 16-year-olds who have bad language. But for them, it's kind of what unites them. And when you put that in the family system with values that really conflict with that, and particularly with parents, that's where I think the struggle comes from. So I don't know if there's anyone wants to add to that, or a perspective on what Lisa's raised, or any ways that you've managed it, for example.
Yeah, I've certainly, Lisa, got some experience there with my girls, and I'm not sure if you were online. You might have been when I said 15 and 17-year-olds. So yeah, both girls, and they're around people that from time to time swear, and there have been a number of times that they started swearing, and I recall the first time, and it was the F word, and I was like, and that was a couple of years ago now. So I did that internally, but what I tried so hard not to do was actually show that externally, and I didn't want to react to it, because I think, I felt that they were trying to test out how I might react. And so I just continued to have the conversation that I was having with them, and said, hey, just in terms of swearing, it's kind of not okay. I know you're probably going to swear in different circles. Please be mindful of where you do it. So again, I didn't want to have a big reaction, but I wanted to say, don't do it when your grandmother comes over, for example, and don't do it at school. But if you want to do it with your friends, like, I know they're going to, so I didn't want to react. So yeah, I'm not sure that there's a right or wrong way specifically, but that certainly worked for me. Occasionally, they drop a swear word, but not very often. And I don't know if that's the difference between girls and boys as well. So yeah, that's my take on it. And I'd love to know, actually, and hear from Greg and Nick, but I would love to know, how did you respond when he swore?
I must admit I did react. I left it for the first few times, but then I thought, okay, well, now because I haven't reacted, he thinks he can get away with it.
Yeah.
So then I did react, and yeah, it's just, sorry, Mom, but you can hear it's not a sincere sorry. And then it just continually happens. And I just find it disrespectful. And it's just not how I want them to think that it's okay to speak in front of ladies like that, whether it be me or their girlfriends.
Yes.
Or any other lady.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that share. And when you react, so you just got the sorry when you reacted, and it's kind of still happens, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not important to them at all. You know,
No.
it's almost as if, well, what's the issue? What's the big issue here?
Yeah.
But it is important to me because I can see how it's flowing into day-to-day life within our family home.
Yes, absolutely. Greg, what experience do you have, if any, in that space?
Look, I'm feeling a bit nervous about sharing because I was actually the first to drop the F-bomb in front of my kids, and it was quite inadvertent. And where I thought I'd muttered it under my breath, the girls obviously picked it up, and I chatted with a psychologist about it because I was like, I didn't feel burdened about it, but I just thought, well, I'll ask the question about how mindful should I be. And the question was actually asked, that you asked, Leanne, would they use that same language, and are they discerning enough to use that language, you know, let's say with their peers against their grandparents? And my kids would make that distinction. And in turn, as they've grown up, so that was many, many years ago, yes, my teen uses language, and I even today, there was a swear word dropped into a text conversation. And it's just part of that conversation. And I'm aware as a separated parent, because my time is often brief, there are some things now that I just let go. And in the past where I've reacted quite strongly, I've actually seen those swear words almost become weaponized. So if I react really, really strongly, my kids actually see that if they want to get into get under my skin, they know now how to, or they did know. Whereas nowadays, I might prompt if it's used, you know, in a way that's offensive or a way that's really, really disrespectful. But if it's just in conversation, rightly or wrongly, I've just let a lot of that go.
Yeah.
For teenagers, there are much bigger things playing out than swear words. But that said, I do seriously take Lisa's point that when a teenager is bad mouthing in front of a group of adults, you know, I don't think that's especially healthy where maybe a habit has actually stepped in. So yeah, I think that sounds like a challenge still to solve.
Yes.
And I think, Lisa, I'm also hearing that, so you the mom at home, a single mom?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So you've got 2 boys at home and yourself.
Yes.
And so again, it's that, you know, the swearing in the home with the boys, and, you know, it's really something that from your value system, it just is not okay. And, you know, I think where if I look at myself, with my son, I mean, you know, there are also times where that language is really not okay. And I think, you know, me pushing back in the moment going, hey, buddy, like, that's not enough. I have the benefit of having my hubby come and back me up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my hubby will go, hey, buddy, you don't talk to you. Don't use those words. Do you hear me talking like that? And
yes.
So at least it's kind of we've got a united front, and I can just imagine how challenging it must be with 2 boys who are, you know, and trying to manage it on your own. So Nick, any thoughts from your perspective? I've got some guidance around this, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts and if you've done it any particular way.
Oh, well, I don't know that I feel qualified to share whether my way is the right way or not, but I have 2 boys, and a girl. And I really want to acknowledge the situation. Is it Lisa?
Yes.
She's in at the moment. So my youngest finished high school last year. So he's about to turn 19 this year. So I feel like I'm just on the other side of the period that you're going through. And I've got an older son who's, 30. So, and the daughter in between. And so my journey with all of this, it's been very confronting watching them go from little kids who were so beautiful and, they obeyed, what an interesting word. But, they kind of conformed, they fit in, they wanted to please you. But I reckon it's about at 16 where they think, and I don't know, in human development, I kind of went to books to read. There's a little bit of rebellion that goes on. It's like, I get what you want me to do, but I want to test this stuff out for myself. And so my youngest two are not just literally 2 years apart, the youngest son and the daughter, and they've done everything together and they've been training together, and they got involved in a really healthy, wonderful community where they were doing lots of athletic exercise, but they came home swearing. They were around older kids, and it really challenged me. And then one day, it was the younger one, and I reckon he was about 16, he said to me, "You're the one who says manage what your expectations are around things. You make meaning of things. It's just a word, Mum, the F word," because I remember saying to him, just relax on the language a little bit. I'm not used to this. And he said, "It's just a word. It's the meaning you make of it that you need to sort out. I know what I mean by it when I say it." And I had to kind of, and for me, this is my world and my family, go, wow, I do say that sort of stuff. And as long as you don't swear at me, I understand it's that expression of growing up and testing the boundaries. And so I had to kind of really quickly get comfortable with it, because they were with older people that were using that language. And if I think in my life 10 years ago, saying, excuse me, but saying shit, that was a swear word. But now it's like saying son or air or hello. So I feel like the F word for the next generation is the same. So I don't know if any of that made sense, but me enforcing the way I want things to be that suited my growing up and my era and what my parents said to me, it's like they're doing today's version of the same thing. So I hope that helps. But there are rules. You can't say that to us. You can't say that at anybody. You can't say it in anger at a person. And again, not when Nana's here, because she comes every Monday for dinner. But that doesn't seem to happen. It's just otherwise natural vernacular for them.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying there, Nick, too, with, you know that they're going to say it, and then having rules around what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Because, and I've said that to my girls too, like, don't be saying it at people. Don't be swearing at people. That is not okay. And I found interesting saying, that it just becomes part of the vernacular and they don't see a big deal in it. And that's the challenge, because for us, we're still kind of going, that's massive, but for them, it's not a big deal. So, I don't know how those comments sit with you. Lisa, I'm really interested to hear your take on that, and I'm also interested to hear Leanne's share on, some of the guidance you've got around it.
Yes, I mean, I hadn't thought about instilling a few rules around it, and I liked what Nikki said about not swearing at me and not swearing at other people. That resonated with me. So I think, yes, I would definitely be instilling some rules going forward.
Yeah, and I'm really pleased that that resonated with you, just having a different perspective, I guess. And like going back to, when your son dropped his girlfriend's corsage and swore in front of his parents, and that could be part of a rule. You know,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely, exactly. That's what that's exactly what I'm thinking. And also, if I said something along the lines, also what Nikki said is that I accept that this is the way you talk with your peers. So almost getting to that point of acceptance with certain people, but then this is where we got to draw the line.
And I think that's so important, Lisa, is having that conversation. And it may not be that you accept it, you may acknowledge it.
Yeah,
because
that's better. Yes,
Yeah.
acknowledge. Yeah.
And I think what's really come through from both Greg and Nicole and even and you, Linda, as well, is that we've all got different value systems within our home and how we want our family to be, and that's determined a lot on how we grew up. And you know, Lisa, you and I grew up in South Africa, fairly strict. You know, that's our upbringing. Fairly strict, was very respectful. You never swore. We never swore at home, and if we did swear, we were in big trouble. So it's kind of looking at the values that we bring into running our home, and then comparing that against the job of our teens is to challenge our values, because that is what, and particularly at 15, 16, it's all about developing my own identity, who I am. And we know that about the growth, you know, the teenage adolescent growth, is their job is to go, so why do you think loyalty, even though it's the most craziest question, you know, why do you think trust is a value, Mom? Because really we can't trust anybody in the world. And so their challenge is, through testing the system, what are the values of my home environment am I going to go into young adulthood and take into my life? And which ones am I going to challenge and maybe have my own set that I go in? And I think as parents, we all hope that they take a big chunk of our good values and maybe add 10% of their own, or they could take 50% and add 50%. So the challenge is always going to be there, I reckon. And I just find for myself, sometimes I have to sit and challenge myself and go, look, those are my values, and I'm 50 something. So I've had those values for a very long time, and I'm pretty firm on how they are and how they stand. Whereas my teenagers are only in the start of their life. And so it's having a bit of flexibility around what values are important, that, hey guys, as a group, we're going to uphold in this home. And as long as you're under my roof, and that's a term most of our teens hate, as long as you're under our roof, at a minimum, loyalty, and I'm making this up now, respect, loyalty, trustworthiness are the three key values that I hold very strongly. And then in the respect piece is how you talk to me, to Nick's point, how you talk to me. When you swear in that language, I see that as disrespectful. And, having a look at, agreeing that when it comes to how you relate to me and how you relate to other adults, that's a no-go zone with bad language. However, in the peer environment, and, to Greg's point, if it pops in every now and again, you let it go. But I think it's just being that flexible, adaptable around, am I being black and white? And, the parents, I don't know if you grew up with a parent that said FIFO. My dad used to say fit in or F off. You know what I mean? It's my way or the highway. And I remember as a teen, I hated that. I thought, well, what about me? And I've got my own life. And I think we grew up in a way where bad language just wasn't part of our vernacular. And it's so much part of it now.
Just a little observation, and something that I find quite ironic is that, Leanne, at the start you suggested that teens, their moods are quite intense. So for me, yes, swearing was absolutely a no-no. If I said shut up, like mum and dad would rain their wrath on me. So one of my observations is that it's actually me getting heightened. My mood is heightened. Whereas the kids, they're not getting heightened by it at all. That's just standard fare. And so, again, we have that same rule set, and I appreciate, Nicole, you calling out those rule sets. So we have that. And yes, some of that swearing, as much as I have to grit my teeth, some of it just slides through. I'm aware that I'm sometimes the moody one that's having the reaction rather than them. and you know, there are other things that I probably need to give my time to. And also my own awareness is that if I'm having that emotive reaction, I need to be really, really mindful about that being not the time to step in. I find, look, well, I don't necessarily let it slide there and then. It's something to come back to. So later on in the night, or throughout the chill of a movie or something like that, we might be able to have a conversation rather than a confrontation, and I find that a lot more helpful.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there, Greg, and your awareness of self and how you're showing up, and whether is it just because I'm moody that I'm reacting. That's a really great awareness to have. And also around picking your battles, like when does it matter and when does it not matter? I think, and I hear lots of parents, and I know we've had this conversation a few times, Leanne, around, you know, being able to pick your battles, because if we battle with our teens on many things, then what's going to happen is we're going to start losing our connection. And once we lose the connection, it's really hard to get it back. And these teen years, again, because they are changing and developing and trying to find their own identity, if we can get through that and instill good values and have some rules around, you know, when they can and can't do things or speak in certain ways, and we can maintain that connection, that is going to stick with us for life. And I say that because, as I say, I know many parents who end up disconnecting with their teens because they pick on, you know, everything becomes a battle. Yeah.
I think also what Greg said about just sort of storing that information and then having the conversation later as opposed to the confrontation up front.
Yeah.
I think that was also a good piece of information or advice.
Yeah, because we get triggered by it. We get
definitely
triggered. I get triggered by it. You know, when it comes out, I'm automatically, it's just almost a spontaneous trigger that I have to go just cool it to myself. So it's such a valuable observation.
Lisa, when your son swore in front of a bunch of parents, I'm curious, how did you respond or react to that? Did you let that go and have the conversation, or did you say something in the moment?
Well, I did. I got such a fright. I just went, oh! But then all the parents did that with me. So there was this room full of 20 parents all gasping. It was just a horrible time. Horrible.
Yeah, it sounds it. It sounds that oh dear moment. Nick, sorry, you got your hand.
I'm just loving this conversation, and there's some people in the background here, and we're all talking as you're talking. So it's really fascinating. Thank you for all of your shares. I've just got to try and think what's the most valuable for everybody. I just remember growing up in a household where my father was allowed to say what he wanted to say, be angry when he wanted to be angry, control situations in his anger, but we were never allowed to do that either. So and I want to help you, I want to thank you and Leanne for your advice in helping me understand how sometimes the rigidity of my rules and what I enforce on my children means that the closeness that I'm trying to have with them, the way that I behave and be so fixed in things, means that I'm the one who gets in the way of them being close to me. So sometimes it's just letting them have their moments. And if it's in our own home, I just remember thinking, I don't want to recreate the experience that I had when I was with my dad, where he had rules for him, but they weren't the same rules for me, where we shared the same space. So kind of letting some of that go through to the keeper is okay, because again, it's their common vernacular. It's not what we grew up being allowed to do. It's not what we grew up being allowed to say, but these are not the times where we grew up. So there's something around letting them express themselves as they need to without trying to inhibit them or control them, or I hope that makes sense.
Yes, spot on. And if I may, there's just a Very Well Family is a wonderful resource. It's often inputted by psychologists, and it provides in general, and I mean, Linda and I are looking at resources all the time to try and inform different ways of responding to our teens, because there's no silver bullet. Every teen is different, every family dynamic is different. You know, our stories of how we grew up and how we were parented is different. So, and Very Well, just a few points, and we've actually covered a number of them. The first thing is stay calm. And I think we've all acknowledged that in the moment, don't react, because if we're going to react, it's probably going to be with emotion. We're going to be pissed off, and it's going to cause them to be pissed off, and it often can land up imploding. So, and often it's tough to hear the language, but to try and stay calm and take a few breaths. And the thought is that if you feel that you're still really peeved, rather just go, hey, I need a moment, just give me a moment, and walk away and just try and bring your brain into a more controlled respond way. Or to Greg's point, come back, hear them out, and then just tally it and come back maybe even the next day and go, hey, I want to talk about what happened last night. I didn't raise it there because I was pretty peeved. And be honest with them, and then try and do it in a calm mode, because that's when their brains are thinking, they're not reacting in emotion. The second thing it suggests is take a break if you need, and I've covered that. It does say they recommend enforcing rules. And I think that talks to all of the things we've talked about. Make rules that so I loved your suggestion, Nick, around you don't swear at me, you don't swear at your nana, you don't swear to adults. And so, Lisa, for you, it could be similar, but hey, when you guys are playing a game together, that is a circumstance that I'm not okay with, but I'll acknowledge that language is going to happen. And then the other thing is providing consequences. So if that language happens with me, or it happens in whatever you decide are the rules, then you've got to put some consequences and maybe get them to figure out what those consequences could be. Let them own that, because often they come back with worse consequences than we would. So whether it's no phone for an hour, or you can't game for a night, or which is quite a consequence given we all stuck at home, you can't game for an hour. So work out, but give them the ownership of, so what are the consequences that you think they could be? Let them regroup and come back. And then, then you've just got to really stick to your guns. And then when they get it right, and when you have a conversation and there's not an F-bomb there, actually validating and going, wow, I just want to say it was really awesome, and I've noticed you've made a big difference. So acknowledge and encourage them is what they recommend when they successfully do it well, versus only focusing on when they do the flop, if you know what I mean. What do you reckon of that, Lisa?
Yeah, I think that's great. And actually, I was sorry that I didn't bring pen and paper, but now I see Linda sending little messages on the screen. So how do I access those messages, Linda? Because I need to print this off just that I can...
Well, we all need them, Lisa.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we get
them?
How do we get our grubby hands on...
Well, we'll work that out. We'll work that out, and we'll send it to you. How about that?
Okay, perfect. That would be great.
And we also recording the session, Lisa, and we send the link, and we'll pop it up on Facebook as well.
Oh, perfect.
So we'll have the link of the Q&A, and we'll also put some of these resources as like an attachment.
Okay. Great.
So what do you reckon are the couple of things you've taken out of, I mean, I can't believe it's already close to 8 o'clock.
I know.
Yeah. I think what you've summarized now, Leanne, is great. And when you mentioned the consequences, my first thought was, oh, geez, what would be a consequence for a 16-year-old boy? But then you said, okay, put it back in their court and see what they suggest. So that also is great, because they know what's of most importance to them. So, yep. So I think that's great. That's great. Thank you.
And it was interesting. We had a conversation in our Q&A last week about consequences, and having the conversation with the teens around consequences and kind of coming up with a bit of a contract. So I think it's a common theme right across a lot of the stuff that we do.
If I might, because what I love about hearing this is the thing that and gosh, I'm in my 50s now too, but I acutely remember all the rules and you will and whatever, not having a say, just trying to navigate. Oh, hold on, you can do it, but I can't. And she can do that, but I can't. Or I can do that, but they can't. The clarity that was missing in that whole environment just kind of makes you play a small game. And when I think about my kids now, I just want them to be the best versions of themselves. I want to know what's going on for them. So if I come down too much from the outside in and not inquire enough or give some room at the table for their ideas as well as my ideas, then I'll never know. I'll have the same relationship with them that I had with my parents. My parents knew nothing about me. They know more today because I'm in the caretaker role of them. But as you know, all those years that went past, I think, oh God, it could have been so much better. And that's really what I would like to create now, an environment where you can say what you need, and I'm not going to quickly jump on it, not going to judge, because many of our kids haven't learned how to ask for help very well. So what they do is they'll drop that F-bomb or they'll whatever because they're in an emotional state. So our choice in that moment is to go pay attention to the word that we weren't allowed to say, which is copying the old patterns, or maybe go, oh, I notice something's going on right now. It's okay to feel upset, but maybe in this environment, it's not okay to use that language. At home, cool. We've got some rules, a bit more lenient, but maybe we can work out a way that happens when we're not in our own four walls and other people are watching. Anyway, I just would like, and what I'm trying every day from the tools and the stuff that you and Leanne give me, Linda, is about making sure I don't jump too soon so that what they really need I miss out on hearing.
Yeah, that is just so important, because something really stuck with me that you said, Nicole, was instead of judging them, actually holding the space and changing into curiosity. So to replacing judgment with curiosity. What is their need in them in this moment where they're presenting with this F-bomb in this emotion, instead of seeing the behavior, stopping to understand what the emotion is driving that. That is just so powerful, because if we can, in that fragment of a second, instead of jumping, just take a breath and go, hey, what is it that you need from me? We might have a totally different conversation. That is
yeah, very good, very thoughtful.
Yeah.
For me, I'm very aware of that at the moment, and just carrying, Nicole, your point forward is that I hear from my daughter that there are a lot of teens engaged in all sorts of risky behaviours. Look, my daughters will have their turn with broken relationships and whatever plays out. And I want my kids to be able to come home and know that they can trust me with those conversations. And I don't want them to have learned that dad's just going to second guess their conversation, because I'll be that dad that picks up on the swear word, not the heartache of what's going on. So, I want to try and be as available as much as I can to be able to hear that heartache.
Absolutely.
And soothe it. And they, if I'm teaching them that I can't listen because I'm being pedantic about the words, then again, coming back to what you were saying, Linda, the relationship tends to crumble a little bit, or where I blur the edges of that relationship, and I don't want to have to do that.
Yeah. Totally.
And what you focus on, we often talk about this, Linda and Nick as well, what you focus on is what you get.
Yes.
So every time they open their mouth, you're waiting for that swear word. Boy, you're going to get it. And you need to that's just so valuable. Yeah.
Look, I know we're at the end of time. I don't know about you, Leanne. I mean, I'm happy to stay on for a little bit and keep kind of talking through a couple of things. If anyone has to go, that's cool. And before you do, I actually wanted to just ask the question, has anyone ever read the book? And I'm pretty sure it's called Mindful Parenting.
No.
I'll track it down and send you a link, but I do recall reading in that book, I read it when my girls were little, because I was kind of just, I was prepping. I tried to read the teen books when they were like 7, so I could prep. And I remember reading this story where the lady said, the author said, I don't tell my mum anything because she always worries. She always worried when I was younger, and so reacted. And so now I just don't bother telling her anything because she worries constantly. And that got me to thinking about all the behaviours that we have, whether it's worry or whether it's an angry reaction or whatever it might be. Like you were saying, Nick, it prevents us, it prevents our teens or prevents others from telling us things because they just don't want to deal with the reaction.
Yeah, and it's kind of the very thing that we want. We want the connection, and we want to know that they're okay, and we want them to think that if they were ever in a predicament, we would be the first person that they called. But by the very actions of, the rigidity and the rules, and where you need to behave in the way that I think the world needs to be, in the end, what they do is they fake how they are in front of me, give me what they think I want, and I don't really know them. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of, my actions and behaviour and my rules get in the way of the very thing that I want the most. Yeah. So anyway, that's all. I'm trying to undo all of that. Sounds so simple, but one step at a time. That's why be careful what advice you take from me.
No, really awesome.
That's great.
Okay. I'm wondering, it's just after 8:05, and I know we did start a little bit late. I'm also conscious, Greg, we haven't given you an opportunity if you did have a burning question. So I'm just wondering how you want to manage this. If you're happy to stay on the line and you do have a burning question, I'm more than happy to stick around with Linda. I'm not sure how you sitting.
Well, no, look, I don't have anything that's burning. I find the conversation around language to be fascinating, and it's from, I guess, an academic point of view, because I build a lot of training packages, so I'm very, very conscious of language and tend to be quite pedantic. And then added to that, I have that same history that us as adults, I think, all share, where our parents were really firm around rules of swearing. And so I appreciate it being, for me, an issue that, look, I've just let go, because I used to be probably quite the stern parent. And the relationship is the biggie. And, my sense is that, certainly my oldest is at an age where she's going to have to make decisions about what her own independence looks like. And it's not on me anymore, or not much, on me at the moment, to be able to, or to want to instill rules, because she's going to have to create her own rules from here on in. Yes.
Sorry, Greg, how old is she when you...
16, nearly, going on 17. So, yeah, I probably sound fairly chilled about swearing, and I'm not, because every time I hear the swear words, and look, they're not coming out regularly by any means, but I still have that gritted teeth moment. But I realise that's my reaction, and that's something that I have to own. And so, long story short, there are, well, not at the moment, but I anticipate, teens being what they are, there'll be bigger issues that we'll need to work through. But the conversation around swearing I find fascinating.
And I think to your Are you off? Are you need to go, Nicole?
I do want to say goodbye, but I just want to say the words that I thought I'd hear out of my children's mouths and the words I never thought I hear every day now. And it's my journey to relax my rules. Anyway, I want to say thank you. I wish I didn't have to go, but we're about to have dinner together and I'm loving, that's what I call the Corona bonus at the moment. Everyone's home for dinner tonight. So thank you. I'm sorry I was late, but you beautiful people, have a great weekend.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you guys. Bye. Good luck,
Take
Lisa,
care.
everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. And I think what just my take on what you just said, Greg, is I don't think there's a right and a wrong. And I think the way we parent, I think our intention by and large is with love, and we want to have the best, we have the best intention with our kids. And the way you parent and the way I parent and the flexibility, and some rules for me may be rigid, more rigid for you. And, we're all going to be navigating this differently. I think for me, I always think if at the center of it is my connection with my team, within an environment where I can create enough of a role modeling opportunity, and each opportunity where there is a little bit of pushback, I go teaching moment. And each moment I see as a teaching moment. How can I teach them that, and again, I'm kind of thinking out aloud, is in that teaching moment, is there something of value I can give them versus you shouldn't be doing that and I'm pissed off with you and go to your room? Is there a teaching moment opportunity to explore and go, help me understand why, whatever it is. And so I don't think it's necessarily a wrong or a right. And I think it's just about keeping our teens' connection at the center of, that's for me my priority, is that we remain connected. I'm a place they can always come to unconditionally. And if they need to F-bomb because they're angry and they smash the car or whatever it may be, I will sit and listen and I'll manage what's going on here. They're just, sometimes you're going to let it go and go, it's not what we should be focusing on at the moment.
It's interesting. Sorry, Greg, do you want to jump in there?
No, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say that I've been reading some stuff recently, which kind of prompted some thoughts in me, and I've got it on my screen here, and I'll just read it to you. It's about keeping it positive. And we can do that whether it's swearing or in any other kind of space. But this is saying, when we give positive instructions, then people tend to follow positive instructions. Now I have a marketing communications history, and I've always loved and had a passion and a focus on human behaviour. And when we give people instructions or we ask them to do something, often they will do it. And so I love reading this where it says, use positive words when telling your team what to do. And so it could be, what to do is, I would like you to use better language when you're around me, or if we're in an environment where there are a lot of people around. So I love that just little prompt. And also, like, it's all in the delivery, the way we deliver it. And this is saying shouting at your team will just make them angry. But if we speak in a calm voice, and again, bringing it back to swearing, and speak calmly about it, they'll tend to take that much, much better. And actually, it's hilarious saying it's all in the delivery. And I'm going to send this to some of my old work colleagues, because I reckon I've been saying that for 30 years. It's all in the delivery. It's all in, it's all in the way. And I remember when my girlfriend was marrying, this is just a slight off the track story, but my girlfriend was marrying a Canadian, and she's like, I don't know what my mother's going to say because I'm going to be moving to Canada. And I remember saying, it's all in the delivery. If you say it like, oh, Mum, I've got something to tell you, and she's going to take it that way. Whereas if we say, if you say it in a positive way, I've got some really exciting news. And so, the way that we relate to our teens, if we can try and turn it and use a calm voice and a positive message, that can be incredibly impactful.
Yeah.
Love it. All
Were
right.
you going to add something before?
Again, just a little observation, because I know at times I've seen my kids get a little bit heightened over the whole coronavirus, and they're up to date moment to moment on phones, and Then they get online with their friends and it's drama on drama. And, you know, again, I'm trying to instill that message of, you know, let's just hold steady, let's breathe through it, let's just be with where we're at the moment. Because even right now, we've got family around us, we've got friends around us, there's meals, etc. But then if I'm the one that rants and raves over an F-bomb, and then I say, well, we need to stay calm, my daughter in her mind is thinking, well, hey, Dad, you can't even stay calm through a swear word. You're hardly going to stay calm through a coronavirus. So, you know, that's what gets bandied around. So, you know, again, as much as I'm not okay with the swearing and how it's used, I want to represent, you know, I guess how I manage things. It's, you know, if I'm actually trying to encourage them to breathe through all the drama, I need to be able to do that, particularly around some of those low scale issues as well.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't it bloody hard being a role model?
Didn't realise that was on the PD.
I've got a question. Like, we expect. Sorry, I hope I haven't cut anyone off there because my internet's like it's still a bit dodgy. But so, and I'm curious to have your thoughts on. You know, we often expect our teens to bend to our rules, but when do we bend, or our rules, or our values, or values is not the right word there, but our way of doing things. But when are we open enough to bend to some of their ways of doing things? And that doesn't mean that we have to be swearing, but, you know, it kind of does cut both ways in some way, because there are things that we do that our teens don't like either. And so how do we best manage that?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm wondering, Linda, if we should wrap up. Just if you want to just say, sorry, Greg, I interrupted you there for a moment.
No, that was okay. You go.
Yeah,
yes,
I was just wrapping up.
It is getting dodgy this end. So look, I really want to thank you both for being on with us. Like, I think it's been a really wonderful and enlightening conversation around swearing, because it is an issue, clearly an issue here and an issue in many other spaces where we go. And I think the things that we've talked about and the learnings that we've all shared with each other and those amazing points that you contributed to, Leanne, in terms of guidance and how to do it are really beneficial for us all. And at the end of the day, it is about picking our battles, isn't it? It is about saying, well, when does it matter and when does it not matter? Because ultimately, we want to have a good relationship with our teens. And when we do that, it means that we're going to have a wonderful connection, not only now, but through the rest of our lives. And isn't that like what we all want at the end of the day? We want to maintain a good connection. Yeah, so I want to say thank you so much to you for contributing. Thank you, Leanne, for your awesome input. As always, I could never, ever do this without you. And yeah, it's amazing working together, and it's an amazing space to be working in. So thank you so much. Jump online. We've got on our Facebook page, we're always trying to upload resources, and we've got this Q&A that we're going to be running. So in fact, we'd love to get your feedback on whether this is an appropriate time to do it or whether we should do it at a slightly different time. But yeah, let's wrap up the recording, and then if you want to just let us know what your thoughts are there, that would be great. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. And what I loved about it is it was really a lounge that came to life tonight with a group of parents, where we just shared our own ideas and, you know, our own approaches. And I think what I loved about it is that there's just no one way of making this tapestry. You know, kind of building it for our teens. There's different ways, and I've got huge value just listening to challenges and input. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Some final words, Greg, some final words, and then we'll log off.
Look, I know we talked specifically about swearing, but the swearing issue could be representative of any number of teenage issues. And I think what was especially healthy for me is being able to look on at those issues through values. And I was grateful that some of those conversations came through, because values are very big for us and part of the training work that I do. So it's great to have that prompt to look on at some of those issues through the values lens again. So yeah, thank you. And Lisa, I appreciate you putting up the swearing as a conversation starter, and so thank you.
Yeah, and sorry, can I just say one last thing? I know we all would like to log off, but just in chatting to other parents tonight, it helps keep it in perspective. Because when you don't chat to other parents about, you think, oh my God, I've got the worst home life possible. But when you chat to other parents, it puts it into perspective for you. And now I'm going away thinking all this time I've been making a mountain out of a molehill, because I've lost perspective on what's really important. And of course, that is maintaining the connection at the end of the day. So thank you very much to all you parents. It's been wonderful listening to what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you.
Hopefully we have you all back on the next call.
Yeah, you know, it's been really wonderful. It's been so nice tonight, and I really love that Lisa, in particular, you're going away with a different perspective, but everybody here is taking away something from each other, and that's it, isn't it? That's the important thing. We're learning together.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Stay healthy.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
See you, Greg. Bye.
Bye.